So here's the question: whatever happened to Douglas Coupland? His novel, Generation X, didn't just name a demographic, it captured a mindset. His fiction defined the detached, drifting, hyper-aware sensibility of 1990s youth culture. He gave us slackers before they were memeable, office ennui before the office, and a sense that we are all increasingly plugged in and alienated. And he was prolific for many years, publishing 13 novels between 1991 and 2013, 6 of them in the first 10 years. But it's now been more than a decade since his last novel, Worst Person Ever. That was published in 2013, so what happened? There have been no major fiction releases since then, and no new novels have been announced. And yet, Coupland hasn't disappeared. He's turned more towards visual art, sculpture, design, and essays. He still writes occasionally, but that prolific novelist of the 90s and early zeros has gone. It raises a really interesting question. What happens when you are hailed as the voice of a generation, and then you stop, and time moves on? Coupland's fiction often zeroed in on people adrift in late capitalism, isolated by technology, shaped by pop culture, and vaguely nostalgic for something they couldn't quite name. But being a voice for a generation is powerful, limiting, but maybe ultimately exhausting. And as his readers aged, the cultural mood shifted, irony kind of fell out of favour, and then there's burnout. Can anyone sustain that kind of output? As early as 1995, Coupland returned from Europe after touring microsurfs, saying he felt mentally burnt out and fatigued. He said it was one of the darkest periods of his life. It's no wonder he wrote Girlfriend in a Coma after that. Coupland still remains one of my favourite writers. His books are razor sharp, they're prophetic and weirdly warm. They make you feel seen in the disorientating world of early adulthood, especially if you were caught between an analog childhood and digital adulthood. If you've never read him, these are the 5 great books to start with. Number 1, of course, Generation X. It's the classic. It's witty, it's melancholic, and still eerily relevant. It's a novel of disconnected friends in the desert, inventing a language to make sense of the world. Number 2, Microsurfs, one of the best books about the early tech boom. It captures the nerdy optimism and existential crisis of Silicon Valley life in the 90s, and it still feels totally relevant. Girlfriend in a Coma, a surreal, time-bending novel that mixes teen nostalgia with apocalyptic dread. Dark, strange, and unforgettable, and obviously named after a Smith song. Bonus. 4, All Families Are Psychotic. A dysfunctional family road trip like no other. It's outrageous, it's funny, it's heartfelt and quietly profound. Number 5, Hey Nostradamus. This is his most emotionally devastating novel. It's about a school shooting and the spiritual aftermath. It's perhaps his best and most mature book. One of Coupland's most lasting contributions was his knack for naming things we hadn't yet defined, but instantly recognised. Generation X didn't just give us a label for a generation, it introduced a lexicon of terms that captured the disaffection, irony, and contradictions of late 20th century life. Among the most memorable of these, so McJob, a low-paying, low-prestige, dead-end job with no future. Poverty jet set, young people travelling the world on a shoestring, using globalization's infrastructure to fuel a life of drift and delayed adulthood. Legislated nostalgia, the enforced feeling that things were better back then, often pushed by culture and advertising. Emotional catch-up, burst, the delayed outpouring of emotion after prolonged internal suppression, suddenly and all at once. Coupland's coinages were witty, bleak, and eerily prescient, capturing the spirit of time and place with uncanny clarity. And if you haven't read him, add him to your TBR list and start with the 5 above. You won't regret it. Thank you.